All right, hello everyone and happy Pollinator Week. This week, the state of Nebraska will be celebrating the native pollinators and their conservation through online and in-person events. My name is Laura Kasney. I will be hosting the event tonight. I'm a conservation director serving Southeast Nebraska for the AmeriCorps Common Ground program. The Common Ground program holds educational webinars and events about conservation issues such as water quality, clean energy, and soil health. We focus on educating the public and preserving Nebraska's natural legacy. So a couple items before we start. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those in the Q&A option below. There will be question segments throughout the presentation, as well as a question segment at the end. During the last question segment, you will be asked to fill out a 3-question poll regarding this event tonight. We would love for you to complete this as it helps us measure our outreach and is used for grant reporting purposes. This event is being recorded and it will be put up on Conservation Nebraska website in the next couple of days. Today we are joined by Cody Dreier. He is the pollinator ecologist for the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission and runs their community science-driven rare butterfly survey looking for monarchs and regal fritillaries. So Cody, whenever you are ready.
I am ready. Thank you, Laura. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my presentation for Pollinator Week. Yeah, I do want to just reiterate, there we go, to ask your questions in chat as soon as you think of them. They might be answered as part of the presentation, but it's better to ask. Laura might throw in something. She's kind of seen this presentation a little bit before. So if I'm missing something major, she might jump in. And then I have pauses throughout. If you have a longer question, just throw some letters in chat and I'll give you time to get your real question out. So I usually give about 2 or 3-ish hour presentations at the start of the summer to prepare my volunteers to do these surveys that I'm going to be talking about today. So this is our outline for that. We're going to make a few adjustments here, shorten it a little bit. And if we have time for some species or plant species ID, we'll hit that at the end, but haven't had a chance to fully run through this version of my talk. So we'll see how it ends up. So without any more ado, we're gonna hop right into monarchs and regal fritillaries. And the first being monarchs. So monarchs start their year down in Mexico. They will then migrate up into America and even Canada as the summer progresses. The first generation is usually somewhere from Texas to Kansas, and they spread out from there. Monarchs need milkweed to reproduce. That's the only place that they will lay their eggs, and it's the only food that the caterpillars will eat. It is a toxic plant to most critters and people too if you eat too much of it, but monarchs are able to kind of partition the milky sap, take the chemicals that are in there, I think it's cardiac glycosates, partition that in part of their body and then use that as a deterrent for being eaten by other predators. Nebraska has about 17 or so species of milkweed. I actually saw 4 today, not these 4, but I was out surveying today and I saw at least 4 different species. So if you know what you're looking for, they can be found relatively abundantly on high quality prairies. One of the biggest things to look for besides the milky sap that we saw here is the horns and hoods flower formation. I don't know of any other species that has this kind of flower formation, and it's very distinctive if you can get up close and personal with a milkweed. But back to monarchs, they have to lay their eggs on milkweed. They are very tiny little eggs. They are in this picture here, and I blew that picture up there, and they're still pretty small. After the eggs hatch, the caterpillars will eat their egg and then go through, I can't remember, five instar stages or molt stages as a caterpillar.
Hey, Cody.
Yep.
Sorry. We're having some issues hearing you. I'm able to hear you fine, but I just want to make sure that I can get so just make your
anybody else having trouble hearing me? I can get closer and be louder if I need to.
if you would, and then I'll talk to Amanda as well. All right.
I'll try from a different angle and see if that's... Oh, maybe we need to try out a different format. iPhone's looking like maybe not great. Okay, I'll just sit up and act professional. Try and block that light out. That's why I slouch. Okay, so back to our little caterpillars. So caterpillars eat their eggs, then go through some instar stages and get larger. Their antennae develop a little bit, and eventually they'll shed their skin one more time, jay up, and form a chrysalis. After about 2 weeks of this, it will turn opaque, and the butterfly can be seen inside it. Hopefully, the butterfly then emerges, pumps fluids into its wings, and will be a beautiful adult monarch butterfly. This process happens 3 to 5 times depending on the latitude. We're probably in the 3 to 4 range here in Nebraska, since we usually skip that first early spring generation. Come fall, the monarchs will then migrate back south to Mexico. I do want to point out here that that is the life cycle for the eastern population, which is all of Nebraska's monarchs, but the western population is a non-migratory, for the most part, population that overwinters on the coast of California. They do spread out a bit and then come back, but it's not the huge migration that we're seeing from Canada to Mexico. So once the monarchs get to Mexico, they will group up on Oyamel firs and spend their winters in the mountains about 100-ish miles from Mexico City. They group up in huge numbers. They can be seen from aerial footage like this. And we don't, there's so many butterflies that we don't track them by the number of butterflies. It's the amount of acres that they take up. So, or hectares that they take up. And this is a picture of one overwintering spot. And I do want to point out that deforestation is a threat to the monarch. Some of these areas right up next to their overwintering habitat have been deforested. How are they doing? The answer is not great. Our goal for the species is around 6 hectares. And this last winter, the 2020-2021 winter, they were down a little more from a not great winter previously to about 1/3 of where we're hoping they will be. So we're hoping we can step up some conservation efforts and help. But those numbers are actually really good when we compare them to the Western Monarch, which has only less than 2,000 monarchs counted this last year. This is the most current Thanksgiving count, so 2020's Thanksgiving count. So we're very, very possibly going to see the collapse of the Western population in the next couple of years. Monarchs have been considered under the Endangered Species Act. Their listing is warranted but precluded. It basically means that they probably should be listed, or they should be listed under the Endangered Species Act, but there's enough other species that are doing even worse than them that those species take precedent. So yeah, it could be worse, but it could also be a whole lot better. We're going to shift gears a little bit and look at the Regal Fritillaries. This is just a distribution map from Fish and Wildlife Service. They do want me to point out that it's a draft. We do have records from last summer that get into here. So yes, it's not complete, and it's already about 6 months old. So more data is coming. The Regal Fritillaria's life cycle is a little different. Their host plant are violets, and the females don't lay the eggs directly on the violets. They they lay them in the tall grass near the violets. By the time the eggs hatch, the violets are already died back for the winter. So they need to be so the caterpillars will hatch, eat their eggs in late fall, and then overwinter as a newly hatched larva. In the spring, when the violets come out, the regals go through 6 instar stages, unlike the normal 5 of other butterflies. They form a chrysalis and then emerge early June and will lay their eggs early August-ish to repeat the cycle for the next year. So a single generation per year. Here's just a close-up of Prairie Violet, one of the main species that we put out for the Regals when we do conservation work. We think that Nebraska's numbers are pretty decent compared to the rest of the states based on historical information, but the endangered species process has started for them. We haven't got a listing yet, but the ball is rolling on that. So why do we care about these species? Like I've said, both monarchs and regals are under consideration for Endangered Species Act. They're also Tier 1 species of conservation need in Nebraska, which is a classification that means they're globally or nationally at risk of extinction. We have Tier 1 and 2 species of conservation need here in Nebraska through the Nebraska Natural Legacy Project. And the goal of that project is to keep common species common and to help the less fortunate species. So with the survey that I'm going to be talking about here, we are looking to see, we want to help inform what action should be taken in the future, locally, statewide, and federally. So the things we learned from the survey, we get presence data, abundance, we can get sort of a range map, but they're mostly statewide species, so mildly useful. I'm excited to look at the foraging preferences and habitat characteristics and behavior. Those were kind of extra areas that I added in once I took over the project. Do we have any questions about monarchs or regals? Yeah, what questions do we have?
All right, we have two so far. The first is just clarifying the western and eastern monarch species. Do they end up in the same wintering location or are they separate?
So they're the same species. Monarchs are actually a relatively widespread species. They're in Europe, they're in Australia, um, and have been for, I want to say around 100 years. It might be longer. People like them and move them places. Now I forgot the thread of there's debate as to how much interchange there is between the eastern and western population. We know it's some. It's probably not a lot, but that is a question that's currently being asked and trying to be answered.
Okay. And then we also had a couple asking, they're wondering when the monarchs are going to start laying eggs and when they should look for that.
Monarchs have they're definitely laying eggs now. I saw a caterpillar today. Usually late May, you probably see a fair amount of monarchs coming through Nebraska. The migration back south will end maybe mid-October, but probably closer to the end of September. And so the egg laying for those would be considerably sooner, obviously, than the end there. They do need to build up a little bit of fat to make that migration, so they won't be laying eggs too late into September, or the monarchs just won't make it.
So if you had a numerical amount of time for the monarchs to migrate, how long would it take?
I want to say they get from Nebraska to Mexico roughly from mid-September to mid-November. Some of those might from Canada might start as early as maybe July if they're really pushing it. Or I'm not sure how many monarchs make it from Canada. I know they do, but I'm not totally sure on what their timeline is.
Okay. And then a lot of questions about plants. So what kinds of grasses and other plants do you suggest that people place in their garden beds or in their yards, along with violets and milkweed, to help out these species?
We'll get into that here in a minute. We'll get into some of the results from my study. But in general, I would try to just keep native flowering plants, as many of those as you can, is my just go-to answer for that. Species doesn't matter a huge amount. I would also say do not add insecticides to any of your plants. The goals for these plants is for them to be eaten. So if they look a little ragged because caterpillars are munching on them, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So avoid nurseries or anywhere that would provide seeds with neonicotinoid, especially neonicotinoid pesticides. Those are usually like seed coatings, have pretty long lasting insect control, and it can last in the soil a fair amount too. So I don't think hardly any nurseries are selling neonicotinoid plants because they know better, but do keep an eye out. It's worth a 5-second look.
Okay, and then just a couple more questions just about, so if someone was to find monarch chrysalises on their milkweed plants, should they water the plants more carefully or just water them as normal?
Um, I can't say for sure. They're relatively hardy. I wouldn't like aim your hose at them for sure, but they're designed to hold up to the wind and the rain. Maybe just a slightly lighter setting than you usually spray with. Probably don't need to go down to mist, but probably don't go up to jet either if you've got that twist nozzle thing. So yeah, or just try not to hit them specifically would probably also be good, but they're relatively hardy. They can take some wear and tear. Just don't be actively mean to them.
And then do Regals only use violets for their chrysalis and eggs, or are they only found nearby? Or can they also be found nearby? Sorry about that.
We don't know a lot about Regals and chrysalis. As far as I know, there has been one wild chrysalis photographed. So it's pretty rare to find. You can raise them in a lab or something, but they don't need. I don't think hardly any butterflies really need their host plant to put a chrysalis on. That's often where they're at, but they'll use sticks and stuff, or just like if you bring them inside, they'll just use the roof of their caterpillar enclosure or jar, whatever you have them in. So they're usually not too picky. I guess they would not use violets to form a chrysalis because they're pretty well died back by August. So that'd be when they're, oh no, that's not it. Never mind. Scratch that last bit. I got turned around. I do not know if they use violets at all for a chrysalis.
Okay. And then just two more questions, and then we should move on to the next.
Sure.
So we had a question about how many eggs do they lay, and this could be for either of the species.
I don't know how many eggs Regals lay, but I know Monarchs are somewhere in the 1 to 400 range. They can get up into the like 800 to 1,000. So, but yeah, usually more in the 100 to 400 is probably getting up there for most of them, but it varies on size a little bit. The bigger the female, the bigger or more eggs. And I had one more thing, but I don't remember it. That's enough.
And then do they need a water source? And if so, what kind of water source?
As far as I know, they don't. I assume that they would probably be able to get enough off of just dew if they truly need water, but I do not know the answer to that.
Okay. All right.
I guess they're often found in like very dry prairie, so that doesn't get rain for probably the whole time that it is a caterpillar. So I doubt they need a water source.
Gotcha. All right, we're good for the next section then when you are.
Then here we go. There it is. So we're going to hop into Butterfly ID. Before we get to the Monarchs and Regals, this project previously considered adding skippers to be target species as well. The problem is, unless you get a skipper like this far from your face, they all look like this. If you're seeing them from more than about 2 or 3 feet away, they just look like a skipper. And the marks that delineate them from each other are not easy to see from more than a couple feet. So we didn't include skippers in our survey. We also thought about adding in the Nebraska Fritillary. We looked at it last year. Nobody found any. They also just look like most of the rest of the Fritillaries. So it was worth a shot, but it didn't pan out. So we are sticking with our Monarch and Regal. And Monarchs and Regal, or Monarchs have distribution, statewide distribution, found throughout the state in pretty much every habitat. You'll find them in town, wetlands, upland, a little bit of forest, especially when they're migrating. They like to get up in the trees a little bit. To tell the males and females apart, the males have a little thinner veins and the females have quite a bit thicker veins. The easiest way to tell them apart, especially if they're flying, is to see if they have a little black spot on their hind wings here. The males do, the females don't. This is a pheromone pouch that is used to attract the females. We do have a mimic in the state, Viceroy Butterflies. I've actually seen more Viceroys this year than Monarchs. I don't know if I saw hardly any last year, but I've seen a couple this year. The best way to tell these guys apart are this black bar going across the hind wings that the Monarchs don't have. They're also a little bit smaller. If you're walking down the street and you see a baby Monarch flap past you, it's probably just a Viceroy, because butterflies don't grow in size once they emerge. They're pretty well the size they're going to be. Moving back to Regals, they are again a statewide species. Their determining factor to tell the males from the females is the males have orange spots on their hind wings and the females have white spots. It's not easy to tell them apart when they're flying about, but if they're nice and fly right up to your face, you can see it. Some people like using a pair of binoculars if you're good with that. There are a lot of there are a lot of Fritillary species in the state. A lot of them are out west, but some do cover the whole of the state. The big thing for Regals is their darker hind wings. None of the other species really have this really dark, distinct hind wings with a pretty bright forewing. So there's one set of Fritillaries. We've got another set, and then a whole nother one. The two most common that you'll see other than Regals are probably the variegated and the great spangled. And I think I've seen a handful of great spangled already this season. Both Monarchs and Regals are roughly 3 to 4 inches. They'll vary, but that's a good way to get a basic idea if that could be a Monarch. If it's just an inch or two, it's not going to be a Monarch. What questions do we have on the butterfly ID portion here?
So there aren't any so far on specifically butterfly ID, but we do have a couple other questions, if that's okay.
Yep.
All right. So we do have one, which is, if you were to cater a garden to Monarchs or Regals, what would you plant specifically?
If you're in the city, you're almost certainly not going to get Regals. They need pretty intact prairie. Never plowed prairie is about the best place to find them. They will go to restored, but it can take some work getting them there. But the best thing for basically any pollinator is just get a good variety of plants that will bloom from pretty early spring, like something that'll come up in maybe even March, but at least April through probably October or so, if you can get something going that late. So as late as you can get it, as early as you can get it, 2 or 3 species throughout the year would be my recommendation for just any pollinator in general. I talk about monarchs and regals a bunch, but I do like to encourage people to don't forget about your bees. Bumblebees are great, but you also have solitary bees and carpenter bees and tons of bee species out there. Then there's the moths, and once you get into pollinators, you don't stop. So yeah, just keep throwing as many flowers out as you possibly can, and hopefully that will bring them in. They don't really need anything as far as like structures to live on, but you could throw out some rocks or crevices. Bees do need water, so that if you're thinking about putting some bee habitat out, just little rocks that would hold, it doesn't have to be a lot of water, just enough for them to get a drink every few days or so.
Okay. And then do butterflies talk to each other?
They'll fight. If fighting's talking, then for sure. They have pheromones that they'll release to attract a mate. I don't know of any like formal communication between them. When I think of insects talking, I usually think of like ants laying down a pheromone trail to find to lead the foragers out to get food, or bees doing a waggle dance. And I don't know of any like formal communication like that for butterflies, but I'm sure there are some signals that go out, but nothing that humans would probably think of as direct communication.
All right, cool. And then that is it for the questions so far.
Okay. So we are going to hop into our 2020 results for the Rare Butterfly Survey. Before we get into that, I just want to say how we picked our sites. So first thing we did was get a whole bunch of shape files around from people that we thought would be relatively on board with us going out and surveying. I've done purely random surveys, and it takes a lot of time to contact landowners because Nebraska is about 96, 97% privately owned. So we just picked the people that we thought it'd be relatively easy to get a hold of, because it can take a long time looking up landowner names and stuff. So we ended up a lot on Game and Parks and Corps of Engineers and places like that. We uploaded it into ArcMaps. That's this here. If you haven't heard of it, it's a very powerful program that a lot of wildlife work is done on. Also like city planning, like you can just program in where buildings are and how to do effective routes for delivering packages or something like that. So if you're interested sometime, looking up ArcGIS or GIS in general is a pretty interesting topic. But from there, we just took 1,000 points and randomly threw them at our program, and wherever they fell, I looked at it, and as long as it wasn't like in the river or something, we sent either myself or other people, volunteers, out to check in the field. And if those worked out, then we surveyed them, and if not, we excluded them. So that is what this map looks like. I guess I haven't said yet, but our primary survey area is the Eastern Tallgrass Prairie, which is this cutout here, which basically is the eastern quarter of Nebraska. So we had 163 sites that we sampled last year, and we excluded 45 of them. This is one of my favorite pages. I really appreciate the work that my volunteers did for me. 33 people and 24 people respectively sat through 3-hour trainings last year with me talking like this at them. And then we had 33 different surveyors that came out last year, 26 of which were community scientists. 5 volunteers did at least 5 transects, which was huge. And our volunteers actually surveyed more than the biologists like myself were able to survey. So the value of my volunteers, I can't overstate enough. They are highly important to the success of this project, and I appreciate every last one of them. For some of the hard stats, we're getting into 180 monarchs. We saw those at 71 transects at 62 different sites. So we got back to 9 of those same sites to get 71 transects. We saw exactly 100 Regals. Couldn't have planned it if I tried, at 29 transects and 26 different sites. So about half Regals to Monarchs. What we learned last year is it's pretty tough to tell the sex of Monarchs and Regals when they're flying about. It's hard. The differences are pretty small, and they're relatively small butterflies. And if you see them from more than 5 meters away, you just don't have a chance. So yeah, I'm more than happy with our moderately limited results here. As for activity, it makes sense that we're seeing monarchs flying the most. This doesn't mean that they are flying for most of their time. It probably means that it's much easier to see a butterfly when it's flying around as opposed to calmly sitting on a flower, not drawing your attention. We did see a fair amount nectaring, and we will get into what they were eating now. When we look for what species they're nectaring on, volunteers don't leave the transect path, because then they might scare up some butterflies that they wouldn't necessarily have seen without leaving the path. So only 6 unknowns was pretty good in my opinion. Next most common were hoary vervain, common milkweed, lemon bee balm, and world milkweed. And lemon bee balm was a Regal favorite with no monarchs coming there. So these would be some plants that I would encourage trying to get out into your pollinator garden if that's something you're interested in. As for just overall plants last year, we ID'd 125 species, over 125 species, which is amazing. We're only looking at 10 square meters per transect. So that's like a new species every other survey, which kind of blew my mind. I wasn't expecting that one. Our most common plant was daisy fleabane and hoary vervain, with black-eyed Susan and common milkweed up there also. I throw this chart in just to see kind of where we were surveying. A lot of game and parks land, fair amount of fish and wildlife, but not a small amount of private land also. I include this slide so I can say that what you just saw is this, that bar graph is now this pie graph. And I include this so that I can say we didn't really exclude anything in any great disproportionate amount. So we basically surveyed the same proportion of sites as we excluded. And here's kind of our results. So we have, if we didn't see any butterflies at all, it just gets a white dot, red for Regal, blue for Monarch, and black for both. And then the more monarchs or more butterflies there were, the bigger the circle is. So yeah, you can just kind of take a quick glance, and it's nice to be able to just see results so quickly, I think. What questions do we have about our results? Stats. Anything, Laura?
Nothing yet.
Well, I think I am going to just push ahead then. Please do throw your questions in the chat if you have them. But I do want to get to a few other citizen science opportunities while I have you here. A lot of my work is through citizen.
1 second, Cody.
What was that?
Sorry, we had two just pop in, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Yep.
So the first is, does Nebraska track butterflies raised from eggs?
Nebraska doesn't. If you're raising monarchs from eggs late in the season, Monarch Watch, which we'll get to in just a minute, would like that data. So yeah, anything probably after August. Yeah, once you get into September, Monarch Watch would like that data, and Project Monarch Health. And Project Monarch Health would take your data through the whole season. Yeah, so please look into that if you're raising monarchs.
Okay. And then is there any interest survey data from sites further west of the tallgrass region?
I don't understand the question because that's everywhere.
Do you plan to move more west in the future?
I would like to get 20 or so sites that are reoccurring out west, just to get some western data. Our grant is for the eastern tallgrass prairie, so the eastern quarter. So that's where we're going to be focused for quite a while. It's also where I'm stationed out of Lincoln, so it's just much easier for me to survey here, and I can do a lot more work here as opposed to traveling out west and spending time traveling and stuff. So we don't have any huge plans to get out west, but I would like some help out west.
Okay, awesome. And then as of right now, where's the farthest west that you'll go? Like, what's the boundary?
I think right in line with Hastings. Let's just pop back here. Yeah, I think Hastings is right there. So I think right in here is the town of Niobrara, and then there's Norfolk, Columbus. I think this one's, one of those is Aurora, York, Aurora. So so yeah, not too far west yet, but I have a few people that were thinking about the Kearney area, and then a couple in the Alliance area that might help me out this summer. So if anybody is interested, we just started the season. I have all the training materials ready for you if you are interested.
And what about the south central part? So just right at the
South
bottom.
Central.
Yeah.
Yeah, if people are interested, please let me know. I will type out my email right now.
I can get it out as well.
Sure. Yep. There it is. Shoot me an email if you're interested. I have tons of training material. We can for sure get you in the field somewhere. The weather looks terrible for the next few days for me, so I'll probably be in the office and able to get to your emails in a timely manner, as opposed to I've been in the field the last 2 days, so emails have taken a back seat. So if you don't hear from me, I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to get to you as fast as I can, but I got to be out when the weather's good.
Okay, and then just one more. So we have some people who are raising monarchs from eggs, and they've never seen a monarch, but they have eggs. So is there a certain time of day or night that they lay those?
I don't think so. I don't think they're active much at night. I haven't ever really thought about it. I don't think they're active at night. They are insects. They are cold-blooded, so the warmer it is to a point, the more active they'll be. So, yeah, that might be helpful. But the eggs, they stay as eggs from like 5 to 7 days, so they don't get laid and immediately hatch. So you got plenty of time to go check your milkweed about once a week and see if you found any.
And for anybody who's interested, you want them to email you, and then for picking up material, where would they pick it up, and then like what hours should they pick up? Does it have to be when parks people are there?
So we have 3 material pickup spots. The Outdoor Education Center at Lincoln, right in here. Schramm State Park, just outside of Omaha. And then the Norfolk Game and Parks office on the north side of Norfolk there. For Schramm, it needs to be during hours, or at least call the park and 8 to 5, or call them and they can get you, they can leave a packet out for you. But the others are come as you please. So yeah.
Okay.
I try to make it as easy as I possibly can. For anybody out west, we'll probably just have to talk about it. I might mail it to you. It's very possible you can make your own material without too much trouble. So I have instructions for that also.
All right. So there is one more question before we move on to the next part. We just have some people wondering if the intense heat of last week and this week is too much for them, and then are they at risk with the changing climate as well as deforestation?
A lot of insect decline is death by 1,000 cuts. They've got climate change, they've got pesticides, reduced habitat, deforestation for the monarchs. It's just mostly all around bad for them. The heat probably wasn't good for them. It could probably dry out eggs a little bit and make it harder for the larva to retain water, I would think. But for a few days, I don't think it'd be an issue. But I think the major concern is with affecting the plants and really hitting the milkweed hard and stuff like that. I don't think we're there yet, at least for this summer, but it could become an issue pretty quickly.
Yeah. All right. So we are good to go.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Oh, look away, everybody. Here we go. So there are other ways to get involved. I obviously want you to do my project. I think it's fun. I know it's useful, but there are other great projects out there, and my project is moderately involved. It's not easy, but I think most people can do it if they put a little time into it. Some of these are a little easier. One of those being Habitally. It's an app developed by Bayer, the aspirin company, and Iowa State University, where you can just put in drop spots on a map for your property, and it will feed that information that you put in directly into the Monarch Conservation Database, which is one of the primary tools used by Fish and Wildlife to determine its listing, the Monarch's listing status. So this information goes to the same place that states are uploading information to. You just have a way easier time of it. So that's Habitally. Do not put CRP in here. They do that a different way. So if you have just a pollinator garden or something like that, or just have your own grass field somewhere or something, this would be the place to put that, but not CRP. Then there is Monarch Watch. They have a tagging program that runs through the fall each year. You put just a little tag on the monarch's wing and let them go. Catch them, tag them, let them go. The idea is if they are caught somewhere else or they find the tag on a dead butterfly, we at least know where the butterfly was and where it ended up. So that is a very important program. If you do Monarch Watch, I would highly, highly encourage you to do Project Monarch Health. All of these little tiny dots are OE parasites. The bigger dots are scales from the monarchs. So you stick a sticker on the abdomen of a monarch, kind of rub it around, not rub, peel it around the abdomen, peel it off, and stick it on an index card. And you ship that off to Project Monarch Health. So it only takes about 30 more seconds once you have the monarch in hand. This is also a project that you could do if you just raise monarchs throughout the year. Highly, highly encourage you to send that data off to Project Monarch Health. They don't have a lot of Nebraska data, so I'm really trying to plug for them. If bees are more your style, we have the Nebraska Bumblebee Atlas run by Katie Lamke out of the Xerxes Society and UNL. She has this great Bumblebee map ID combo thing. It's just awesome. You go out, catch bumblebees for about 45 minutes, stick them on ice, ID them, and let them go. It's simple, it's fun. I really enjoy getting out with this project once my summer butterflies is done. If that's too structured for you, you can just use Bumblebee Watch, where you just record all the bumblebees you see. Basically the same process as before, but less structured. And this is also where you would record all of the Nebraska Bumblebee Atlas sightings anyway. So yeah. Sort of a pollinator, if we're gonna stretch it, is Fireflies. Mass Audubon has Firefly Watch, where you basically go out to a field or your backyard or anywhere and then watch for fireflies for a couple minutes. Very simple protocol, pretty quick. And I do have more Nebraska-centric material for this. It's not online, but if you're interested in Firefly Watch, I am trying to gather some Nebraska-centric material for it. Then we have Journey North. Basically, if you see something, say something. If you see a monarch, just throw it on their website. If you see a bald eagle, throw it on their website. If you see a gray whale, I want to know about it. That's pretty neat in Nebraska. We don't get many of those. So yeah, very straightforward. Where'd you see it? If you got a picture, that'd be great. They also haven't been getting much Nebraska data, so I would encourage you, if you're seeing stuff, let them know too. And then lastly, we have iNaturalist. We have our Pollinator Week challenge going on now. If you see a pollinator, take a picture, throw it on iNaturalist. iNaturalist is a great place to check IDs for plants and insects. You get a lot of really knowledgeable people on there, and it's the information is used by professionals in the field quite a bit. So those are the all of the sites that I just talked about, and I am going to just quickly buzz through my survey and let you know what that looks like, in case you're interested in participating. So we're primarily interested in monarchs and regals. There are viceroys out there. We don't want those guys. They're just there to trick you. I have some estimation areas set up at Schramm, Lincoln, and Norfolk, so people can test their ability to estimate and practice up a little bit. I'll assign sites to people, and then we go out and survey. It's purely a forward-facing survey, and it's within the bounds of the survey area. So anything above or below this line would count, but anything out here, we're not counting. We're not looking backwards either. We want to get the distance from the butterfly and the angle. I can use a little bit of trig, and we can get some abundance measures for that. We're also looking at what the species is, the sex if we can get it, and what was the butterfly doing. Then we have 5 vegetation and habitat assessment plots. There's protocols to set those up, but you don't need to know them, at least for now. And then for our habitat, or for the floral assessment, we'll look at what flowers are in that little green box. It's just 2 square meters. And then the habitat and landscape variables are the 100 square meter box there. I also want to point out that we do a presence absence survey for milkweed, monarchs, and regals while we're on site. So with that, oops, we're just gonna go backwards. We're done. I wanted to get to my question slide, but thank you. Oh, nope, there it is. Thank you guys for listening to me talk for an hour. I'm happy to stick around as long as people are interested. So
Yeah.
what questions do we have?
Thank you, Cody, for speaking with us today. Love hearing about pollinators. So we do have a couple questions, and then as people are thinking of more, and as you answer the questions, I'm going to have a little poll jump up on everybody's screen. If you could fill that out, it would be super, super helpful to us here at Conservation Nebraska, so that we can continue doing events like these to get this information out there. So I'm going to launch that, and then we'll get on to questions. All right, so for the first one, so the recorded webinar, just to let everybody know, is going to be on neconserve.org. I'm going to put it on the chat for everybody, and it may be a couple days until it's on there, but it'll just be under events, under previous events. And then our next one, we just have what, for anybody in school right now, college, high school, who's interested in this stuff, what type of material or efforts could they make during the school year?
Can you repeat the last bit?
So what type of material or efforts could they make or cover during the school year? We have somebody here who's an insect science and fisheries and wildlife major.
I'm not sure I understand the question. If you're in college, I would encourage an entomology class. If you're here at UNL, I know they've got a bunch of good classes. Kearney, not so much. I think they've added a few more since I left, but I'm not sure there were any entomology classes at Kearney when I was there. So if you're interested in these kind of surveys and you have a little time, I would like it if you surveyed for me or some other people, but to like get full credit for stuff, a class, if you did a handful of sites for me, I could reasonably count it as an internship if that's something that would be interesting to people. I did that last year with somebody and he did a lot of work for me and I don't have any money to pay you, which I hate, but yeah, that's really all the advice I can give you. Get a paying summer job if at all possible in wildlife for your resume would be one of my biggest pieces of advice.
Awesome. There's lots of groups too at UNL, especially in natural resources. So just join as many as you can handle. And then if anybody else has any questions, please let us know. Right now we don't have any more, but hopefully we get some more going. But it is 8:03, so we are at our time. So if nobody else has any more questions, we'll give you a couple more minutes and then we'll end for tonight. And we've had Cody quite a few thank yous. So yes, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight.
Yeah,
I know
no
you're
problem.
super busy, especially, summer season. So
it gets pretty crazy, but it's not too bad. It's mostly repurposing stuff. So yeah, I'm happy to get the word out, especially if we get a few people that want to survey with me. That's well worth my time. So again, if anybody's interested, shoot me an email. I'll throw it in the chat again. Oops, that's a comma. Yeah.
All right, we do have one question. They're just wanting to know what effective ways there are to raise awareness on the conservation of butterflies.
I don't know. That's a question that I ask myself quite a bit. Insects are getting more and more attention, especially since the decline of the honeybee back in 2013, 14-ish. That's when insects really started to become really mainstream, but I don't know, I throw out that statistic about the Western monarch population being less than 2,000. People are like, I had no idea. And I didn't even have an idea. I think that's something that we struggle with, is really getting our science out there. Scientific communication's hard, and it's becoming very essential. And yeah, it's just tough. I guess my way to answer that would be like shocking statistics, but I know that's not for everybody. But that catches my personal attention. I guess, Laura, you do education. What do you have any ways of getting that kind of information out you found super useful?
So personally, I just like to live it. So trying to do, your own pollinator gardens. If you're wanting to live more sustainably, actually live more sustainably, and then just, you're experiencing so you can talk to people a little bit better. There's a lot of resources online. Game and Parks, there's a whole lot of like posters and stuff. If you're an educator, you can hang things like that up. So just things like that, but mostly, talk to people.
I guess we're not affiliated in any way, but the Caterpillar Lab has it's a Facebook page. They have just really, really cool pictures of caterpillars every day. They're kind of documenting like most of the caterpillars. And they got really cool pictures. That's something that makes it to my Facebook page occasionally. So it's tough to not look at a really cool butterfly or moth. So maybe try that.
What was that page called?
I think it's the Caterpillar Lab, but I can't say 100% now that you made me question it.
Sounds right. Sounds like a good place for it. So let me see. Oh yeah. Yep, the Caterpillar Lab. Yep. I'll link it for anybody interested in the chat.
They're not affiliated with us at all, but they're pretty neat. So
all right. Well, it doesn't look like we really have any other questions. So I say we're good to go for tonight.
Sounds good. I appreciate you all sticking with me for an hour.
It was a good talk. Awesome.
Thanks.
All right. So have a good night, everybody. Bye, Cody. See you later.
Bye.